Excuse. Hi, girls. I'm sorry to disturb you. I hear you guys are going for a party. I don't know if I can join you people.
What was that you just said?
Wait, what did you say?
I'd like to join you girls for the party.
Are you blind? Are you sick or something? Huh? You want to join us to a party? I can see you don't know your class anymore. Where will you get out of this place? You stink with poverty. Oh.
That was a clip from the movie Girls Caught, made in 2006 by Afem Okere. The girls are catty and mean in a way that would make even Regina George flinch. Benita Nzerebe takes off her luxurious sunglasses to take a proper look at Uche's outfit as she adorns a fake guest top, making the dynamic all the more clear. As they walk away laughing, the camera focuses in on their strut. So classy, they even wear heels on the rough roads of Yaba. This was my first introduction to the Nollywood babes aesthetic. Watching it with my cousins and laughing most of the way through. We thought they looked silly, cheap, and their attempts to sound posh were failing miserably. Now almost 21, I have 2 questions. How are these same women now flooding hundreds, if not thousands, of people's Pinterest boards? And how does wealth play a part in fashion across the diaspora? Start off, I think it's important to take a trip down memory lane and explore how Black women have paved the way for their own freedoms in self-expression through fashion and beauty. In American society, Black women have faced extreme discrimination from the white-dominated social fabric. They have been long stereotyped as the mammy, sexless and ugly, or the Jezebel, immoral and hypersexual. Black women have been forced into boxes and expected to conform to white standards of beauty and respectability, with many Black women choosing to assimilate in order to feel safer and more accepted in society that considers them replaceable and undesirable. But over time, Black women began to use their newfound freedoms to incite a new wave of fashion which rebelled against white beauty standards and established their own beauty in their African features. In Style Politics and Self-Fashioning in Mammy Garvin Fields by Erica Ball, the anecdotes from Lemon Swamp and other places, we are introduced to Black women who learn how to use their skills in designing and sewing to help their own lineage as they begin to serve their own families without needing to share their labor with white people. Ball tells us how a Black woman's display of such domestic skill and artistry for herself and her family turned the notion of white supremacy on its head. Tanisha Ford describes how female singers like Nina Simone, Odetta, and Abby Lincoln helped create a politically charged language of soul that established soul style as fashionable expression of Blackness. In particular, the styles of South African singer Miriam Makeba, which embraced natural beauty for Black women, having her hair short and rebelling against the more glamorized high fashion looks of the 50s and 60s, her impact was felt across the world, with Black women identifying with her confidence in her authentic self and her African heritage. Now, for a lot of our parents growing up in a post-colonial Africa, me specifically, my parents growing up in a post-colonial Nigeria, this meant there was an immense amount of American and English influences on their style and perception of fashion, as you can see by some of these photos. That is not to say that it was completely dependent on outside influences, and that's simply untrue. But those same Hollywood celebrities and starlets seen on the screen were loved and adored back in Lagos. So naturally, as we enter the 21st century, The same connection and influence manifested with the rise of television movies and the rise of the Nigerian film industry, Nollywood. What is Nollywood? Nollywood is the popular sobriquet that originally referred to the Nigerian film industry, but has now come to refer to most of the African film industry as a whole. Now, what is Nollywood Y2k? There's a lot of differing opinions and definitions, but for the purpose of this video, my definition of the Nollywood Y2k is an aesthetic which emerged in the early 2000s in the Nigerian film industry, characterized by ultra-femininity and heavy connections to the American hip-hop genre. So, when we speak on the connections between the diaspora, Van Dyke Lewis speaks of the push and pull dynamic of the diaspora, which produces creative outcomes that are unsettled and profound. And I feel Nollywood is definitely an amazing example of that. These movies showed how clearly influenced West Africans were with American hip-hop and their music video vixens. Attracted to the bling and fame they could see granted to others on television, and you could see that they wanted to emulate the same feel and look. Matilda Sandy writes, "If we look at the attires of video vixens, they consisted of prints, fur, color, skimpiness, and wigs. It is not hard to see where these babes got their fashion inspiration from. But we mustn't take from the fact that they took it, added their own very distinctive spin, and made it fashion." Not only is the Nollywood babe a fashionista, she reeks of sexual appeal and often has many suitors wanting her attention, and will have toxic fights with other beautiful women to secure their place as number one. Their sexuality feels liberated, however, with many women quick to put men in their place. Sandy writes, "It is a huge statement that denotes, yes, I look sexy, but you can't touch me," which is reflective of that overplayed narrative in a lot of Nollywood storylines, where the babe is always playing hard to get. With all this imitation and often repeated tropes, it's understandable why so many at the time, and even now, saw it all with ridicule. According to Nylon, its impact led to the subsequent films like Beautiful Faces, Abuja Connection, Girls Caught, and more, all which came under quick criticism. They were considered mediocre for their craft. The acting was looked down on for being over the top, and the writing was criticized for being lazy. It was trendy to hate on the industry as a whole, and very few people were willing to share to the public that they actually enjoyed watching some movies.
I think it's funny how like trends can come about, because I think I was too young when I was watching, Nollywood, so I wasn't like, maybe like when I got into my later teens, I thought the outfits were embarrassing. But when I was a lot younger, I actually thought they were pretty cool in a way, like except for like the ones that were quite extra and like overly dressed and very like clearly trying to be like, I guess, American, like Y2k vibes. But I think I liked it because it added its own like vibe to it, if that makes sense. I think there was something very specific about the Nollywood Y2k that I wasn't seeing anywhere else. So I think I wasn't necessarily like, I wouldn't laugh at it, I'd be just more interested in it. And so I think I understand the trend coming back, most definitely, especially I feel like as a way for diaspora to reclaim a sense of culture and like upbringing.
Question 3, yes, the change of the culture towards Nollywood dressing was shocking for me, because I also used to like find the way they used to dress kind of like trivial, but I guess fashion always comes back around. So it's interesting to see how the whole low-rise skirts and low-rise skirts and denim skirts and like all these things, chunky belts are like coming back into fashion, and all the Ed Hardy juicy is coming back into fashion. Yeah, it has shocked me, but I'm accepting of it.
wise it's a positive thing, but I can also understand people who get protective over the fact that, because it's mainly the diaspora interacting with this trend, it might be something that, non-Nigerians are participating in. But I feel like almost there is that general sense, there's like that general similarity in West Africa, so I feel like I wouldn't necessarily get protective if, for example, a Ghanaian was to join in on the trend, because I think that Nollywood, even back then, being like one of the highest producing like movie industries, definitely went far and beyond in terms of its reach. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's actually quite positive, kind of, celebrating this Ninja twist to the Y2k trend. So I'm quite glad seeing it coming up. My own fear is that what's going to happen, like in a similar way to how trends work, is that it's going to die down very soon and people are going to start bashing it again. And that's one thing I don't enjoy about trends, because I do really enjoy the style, and I like that people have found expression through that and like have leaned a bit more into, the non-typical ways of dressing as a Nigerian, the mini skirt, the darkish, goth like makeup, the popping colours, the chains and stuff like that. I think it's been very, liberating for a lot of people dressing like that, and I think the rise is a positive thing, definitely.
So strange to see people like wanting to dress, even non-Nigerians wanting to dress in that Y2k Nollywood style. I don't particularly have any feelings to non-Nigerians wanting to dress that way, but I think I like the hype. I think the hype is really cute. I think it's what Y2k Nollywood deserves. Like that fashion style deserves that type of hype.
So now, this brings me to my first question. How are these same women now flooding hundreds, if not thousands, of Pinterest boards all over the world? Why the sudden 180? Well, this is where social media comes in. Most trends in fashion nowadays start online, with fashion influencers often impacting on a larger scale what is popular. Also, the resurgence back into mainstream culture amongst Nigerians, as well as the change in attitudes, can easily be tracked down to Instagram archive accounts such as Nolly Babes or Young Nollywood and more, which post stills and short clips from old Nigerian films. I will admit this was the way I got back into the trend, just because of the memes and how nostalgic they felt. I spoke to Imani, the admin of Young Nollywood, and here is what she had to say.
At first I wanted to archive Nollywood content. Now Young Nollywood has morphed into this platform with a personality I use to reach people like me. I go through the content and I feel encouraged, and I can imagine it does the same for others. The babes are like the cool older sister I never had. I always loved the Nollywood fashion. I even got teased for indulging, but I really did see the beauty even back then. I always just focus on the positives in general, and I'm pretty open-minded, so to me it was just a style of dressing. It was different, not bad, just different. I'm obsessed with expressing myself, and often that translates into how I look, and so fashion as well. I don't have the typical interest in fashion, but because I like beautiful things, there's an intersection.
While the Nollywood Y2k is a largely positive experience for a lot of people, connecting people across the diaspora through fashion, through music and memes, who can have a problem with that? I just have a few more questions. Van Dyke Lewis states, not being under the influence of a controlling, authoritarian and critical media, diaspora fashion is void of self-criticism, unpredictable and spontaneous. While being unpredictable and spontaneous can be a great thing in the fashion world in terms of sparking creativity and artistry, being void of self-criticism poses a real problem when we begin to tackle the issues of wealth in fashion and how Nollywood Y2k plays into this. The fashion industry already has major issues with classism and the endeavor to sell exclusivity to millions of people. And Nollywood Y2k falls directly into into the hands of this trope with the constant focus on designer and bling bling and being the hottest girl around. What does this mean for people who can't afford all this? As we can see in the very first clip, Benita is ridiculed for her outfit, even though she attempts to join in with a fake guest top. And when we take this further and look across the diaspora, how can Nigerians who are barely earning $1 a day compare themselves to Jay-Z and Kerry Hilson and the various video vixens that were popular during this time and in the industry? What does this mean, and how can we think about this going forward?
Question 2, yes, I think money has affected or isolated my connection to fashion, because a lot of the things I want are expensive, or I have to save money for it, and it's just kind of out of reach for me. A lot of the things I like are out of my budget. So yeah, I do think money has isolated me. But however, I still manage to still like make sure I dress nicely, and I have become more economical with the clothes I buy and what type of clothes I buy.
Money definitely furthered the connection for me. When I'm not as rich, it forces me to be creative, but money gives me choice and access to what I actually want to wear. I guess it's a nice foundation to start off poor.
I personally found it quite funny, you know, the cold mindset that Nolly Babes had towards like wealth, money and men, just because I think it was definitely reflecting of society. Like, you can't expect them to sit still and, you know, live within the patriarchy without kind of expecting something from it. And so I think that idea of like men owing money and men not being, you know, just expecting patriarchal like foot soldiers without giving anything in return was always funny to me. It was something that made sense.
I think it's funny. I think it's I don't think it really excludes people, because when you really look at what a lot of the Nollywood actresses are wearing, it's actually really cheap, and really cheap in the sense that like they aren't dripped down in Louis Vuitton or anything. It's just like, it's actually simple things you can get, like a mini skirt, a top, and it's just, and then maybe a scarf or nice like and sunglasses. So I don't think it really excludes anyone from dressing in a certain way, and I think it's just their acting, you know.
You can be wealthy in more than one way, so I don't think so. I'm not the richest person, but I have a lot of cultural capital. I can go places some rich people never can, so really it's about your strengths. Everyone has strengths. Everyone has something someone doesn't.
So how do I end this? Let's look at the title again. Josephine Baker was an American-born French entertainer, French resistance agent, and civil rights activist. For her style, she loved accessories. She epitomized the BT look of the time, with dark lips, dark eyes, and ever the showgirl. Josephine Baker's iconic look was equal parts provocative, glamorous, and decadent. Ini Edo is a Nigerian actress who began her film career in 2000 and has been featured in more than 100 movies since her debut. In 2013, Ini Edo was a judge for the Miss Black Africa UK pageant. Fashion and sex appeal are her forte. With her, no man is safe. She exerts dominance, especially in her relationships, and she's allergic to stingy men. From low-rise denim to halter necks to dark lip liners and mini denim and leather skirts, she was the it girl of the Lagos scene. But as much as I adore them both, as an American Studies minor, I can't help but critique the glitz and glamour. The fashion industry already has major issues with classism and the endeavor to sell exclusivity to millions of people, and Nollywood Y2k falls directly into these hands with a constant focus on designer and bling bling, downplaying the very real issues surrounding affordability in fashion and the exclusion of those who cannot afford to fit in. Of course, many of those partaking in the trend, myself included, aren't all greedy capitalists, and as stated throughout the video, thrifting and improvisation are a big part of it all, with you not needing the biggest bank account necessarily to join in on the trend. And it's always fun to look back and try out all the styles, and if you're doing that on a budget, I applaud you. And despite the bling bling, the Nollywood babe is a unique piece of history to me and to many others across the diaspora. She makes us feel confident and she makes us laugh. An amazing combination. So I'm just gonna let Imani have the last word.
Young Nollywood is the woman I want to be, focused, direct and strict with her standards. She's invested in herself and she only wants people around her who do the same. That's really the smart thing to do, especially with men. If she didn't invest in herself, men would want nothing to do with her, and she's aware of that. She knows her worth and she can't help how expensive she is.